here we are. Well, welcome to the front row seat. I am going to have another wonderful discussion with my friend Pamela. We are two warriors on the path of this inner journey that we both have stumbled upon within ourselves, and she is just a light in this world, and I'm so glad that I found her. It just seems like, when you're, working on yourself and you're getting these lessons, hard to earn lessons, and you're sticking courage badges all over yourself and you're struggling through it. And it's just so nice to have someone there that, comes up beside you. They can't fix anything, but it's just like, go, go, go. And it's just so helpful to have, others come in that are also, interested in doing the inner work. And I'm just so thankful for my friend Pamela. Welcome to the front row seat again, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much. That is so beautiful. And I am in deep appreciation. And I agree. It's like that support network it's really imperative, even though it is it has to be your experience to be your truth. But that support network is highly necessary. And for you, you've been on the path longer than I have. You forged it earlier than I did. So your insights are incredibly helpful. Again, we have to walk the path. We have to make the choices. It has to be our experience. But those seeds of information, really also, it's like it helps our path. Well, it expands us on the path, right? There's more awareness around the information, a better understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for being that bright light for us and for you sharing your information, because it was brutal and it can be very brutal, but that's what we want to do too.
It's not
Yeah,
fun.
well, no, it isn't funny.
I know what you're talking about. And when we go in and we come face to face with the self that is within all of us, it can be an horrific thing, because we've ignored that sides of ourselves for so long. And as we came out and did the material world, and everything is outside of us, and we did all of it and have been doing it for over 100 years. We're starting to come to the conclusions that, wait a minute, maybe we went the wrong way a little bit here, and maybe the way out is in. And I was just I'm not ahead of nobody. I'm where I'm at. I was extremely fortunate, and I had some assistance along the way. I joke about it. It took a NASA physicist to help me figure out that I was the problem. What do you do? But and Tom Campbell's work is starting to come out into the mainstream now, and that's kind of where I started part of my journey. I was already doing some of it on my own. I'd started reading and learning about things, and I had some really strange experiences when I was coming up that I had no understanding of. I thought I was just the weirdest kid on the block, and I had to really mute myself and not be who I was because of that. And when I was introduced to Tom Campbell's work, and he started just explaining what and I was like, oh, so it wasn't that I was just crazy. It was, I was really having these experiences, and they tie to something else, and it's that bigger reality that's within us all. And consciousness, energy, IUOC, chi, whatever you want to call it, has power. And that's one of the things that I was able to grow through and work through was just, okay, I'm on the right road now. I have to go in. And, there was nobody, Tom Campbell, anybody that was in my circle that could do the work for me. I had to do it all by myself. And I didn't want to, because I had a lot of things within myself that was not groovy at all. So I had to really get in there and suffer through a lot of it. And just piece by piece, you just take a piece of it, and it is all about going in. And I thought it would be really neat if we could come on here today and talk about something that I've been working on really hard for the last probably 6, 8 months. And it's been a challenge of mine. I know that other people have this same challenge. And it's just about, the opinions and the perception that we have of our own self, the power that is us, and the information that is us. And because, we're probably not physical beings, we're probably these energetic beings. And that's why you see some of the paranormal things around you. It's like, well, because we have power and we can do things. But when we take that power and it's turned in a negative way towards the self, what happens there is it disables you in your capacity to be able to go in and start dealing with the fear that's in you. And with that negative energy aimed at you, what you're because it's creative too. So you're creating some of these situations, but it's going to help you learn anyway. But as I was working through this piece, I found something that I really wanted to share. And I wanted to share it with you because I think that you are the best person to share this with and discuss this with. Um, so as I was, looking at, how I perceived myself, there was some areas where it was very negative. And there, we have experiences growing up, and this isn't to, say that we're really a victim of things. We just have these experiences where as younger beings, we could get that information crossways or twisted, because as a young being, you pop into this world, well, that's all up to that point of whatever age you are. And so we've had a history here as human beings. The human species has been here for a while, and in this realm, that's a given, right? And so, since we are animals, we are animal avatars, then that means that we lived out in nature too, just like all the other animals did at one point. And so, there's these instincts in us that play out in our lives. They come out as archetypes. I think Jung talked about the archetypes a lot. And these all are part of this inner world that is involved with our inner self and the soul, the IUOC, whichever way you want to call it, that's playing, and how we are the the being that's making the choices here. And so if you're young and you were living out in nature and you were a little baby and you had your caregivers, which would have been your parents, your mother and your father, who brought you into the world, and the way that it worked was that the parents would make sure and care for the young, because we are a helpless species for a very long time. So we have the biggest caregiver need of most other species. We have like a gestation of 18 years. I mean, think about it. I mean, we don't know anything at 18. We think we do, but we don't. And so, we come in and we're not even fully formed yet, and it's like, so our parents have this huge burden of bringing up the next generation and to carry things forward. And if that infant that came in lost their caregivers, it would have meant instant death, because that's who's bringing them their food. That's the only way they can survive is from their parents. And that's how mammals work in, a natural world like we reside in. And so here you've got, these parents, they're taking care of you, they're feeding you, that your survival is dependent upon them. Well, what that's going to do, and what I saw that it did for me, is that I knew that my caregivers were very, very important. So I knew that if they weren't happy, if they didn't like me or whatever, it would create behaviors within me to try to get that back on track. And if you look at it from this evolutionary standpoint, what you're going to find is that there's going to be a fear of loss of caregiver. And that fear probably developed over many, many, cycles through the thing of, losing a caregiver. and then struggling and suffering because of it, because I think that we come back and back and back. So I'm sure that I've lost many caregivers along the way and probably died from it at some points, just like I think we all have. And so these caregivers, they're almost in godlike proportion, dad, the father, and mother, she's the beginning of all of your relationships. They are just vital for our survival. And, it's still that way. But there's other places that can support if the caregivers, aren't there. But as you're coming up and you have a caregiver that has some special struggles and they've been through a lot and they are doing the best they can from where they are, as parents naturally, mostly love their children if they're not so wounded that they can't. And so when some of those problems come in, for instance, in my case, I had a sibling that was struggling and that was firstborn. And so my caregiver had to give her more care because she was not doing well. And because of that, I misunderstood. And thought that I was losing my caregiver. And, because of that, I went into fear of loss of caregiver. I did have my father who was, steadily there, and he always was, in my life. And without him, I don't think I would be standing here because that would have been both my caregivers were compromised. But my main caregiver, my mother, was compromised, and she had so much on her plate, and she was doing the best she could. It was just very, very, very sad and difficult. There was a lot of tragedy, and she had 4 kids and a sick husband and a special needs daughter, and it was just so much. Looking back as I worked through my own process of what was going on there, I found that she was just in a situation where she was doing the best she could do. And she had only so much attention and focus to go around, and that was it. And so, I had to depend more on my father. But within this, struggle, as I was interacting with my primary caregiver, my mother, when things weren't going so well that day, and things would happen, I would turn that around because I had to make all my caregivers good. And so what that did is flipped it, and then I made them good and me bad. And that started this perception of myself as being bad. And with that perception of myself, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out into the world and I'm going to create things out of this perception that I'm a bad human being. And I'm going to, think bad thoughts about myself. Well, all of these thoughts and all this stuff is energy. And so what's happening when you have any kind of this self-depreciation going on, you're turning all of that energy that is you back in on yourself. And what that does is it incapacitates you to be able to do the work necessary of going in and dealing with your fears and growing and doing the evolutionary work we came to do, which is to evolve from fear-based culture in this system we're in into a love-based culture that's about caring and cooperation and kindness, and being good to each other. We are not there yet, but I think we're on that curve, going to go up. And I think that the message is getting out. That's obvious that there is something that we can do. And the problem is really us and what we think about ourselves, because I do believe that we are energy, and I believe it's a powerful energy. So if you've got a big chunk of that, like sectioned off, that you're not aware of, that is like beating yourself up over mistakes and things like that. I've made a million mistakes, but we have to make the mistakes so we can learn and grow. You can't learn and grow if you don't make a mistake. And so instead of, learning from our mistakes, if we just beating ourselves up, we're not getting the lesson out of it. So you know what I mean? So there's just so many angles around this. And so it's just a coping strategy, this turning negative towards ourselves really is just a coping strategy that we had to use when we were a child, because in our mind, we had to keep that caregiver good so that we didn't come face to face with this fear of loss of caregiver. and we're just, doing this as a self-protective coping mechanism. But what I think happened to me is that I turned that around and made the caregiver all good. And no human is all good. None of us.
Mm.
So I made my caregiver all good, and I made me not all bad. I knew it wasn't all bad. I just made me partly bad, and I'm bad. And I had a lot of lessons around getting this concept within my mind corrected, because I could not do the work that I needed to do, and I couldn't move forward in any kind of self-depreciation mode. It just wasn't helpful. It wasn't helping me, wasn't helping anybody around me. It was confusing. But the honest truth is I couldn't see it. It was so far in. This is from, when you're very young, so the things that we do as young children, we don't really remember all of those things that we did to survive. We don't know.
Right.
And I think this is part of that, what you and I had talked about, that this is, part of our healing journey, and that we are not all healed in here. We have these pieces of us that are just kind of split off into these wonky ways because of some of the experiences that we've had. But in the growing through this and becoming aware of it, what that's going to do is that's going to give you more of your own power back, so that you can use your energy in productive ways instead of wasting it by turning it in and being upset at yourself and perceiving yourself in a negative way. And I know that, I think that all of us struggle with this in varying degrees. I've seen it, within myself. I've seen it within others. And every time it pops up, it's so painful because,
Yeah.
you're beating yourself up. It's a very painful thing. And I really drilled down into this one pretty deep this last year. And I think that it was so necessary. And what I want to do is just, share my story and pass it on so that others can maybe work their way out of it too. Because it's all, if you go in, you'll find all of it there within yourself. And we all have these abilities. We have paranormal abilities. We're just not able to use some of them because of the ways that we're using our energy is not conducive to, doing anything productive here. And so that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, no, that is.
One last thing. I want to listen to what you have to say about all this. Here's the unglitcher right for me. It's like, well, wait a minute. I needed that caregiver when I was a child, but wait a minute. I'm an adult now. I'm my own caregiver. I don't need that anymore. So why don't I just let go of that, having to make something good in me bad?
Right.
Because I'm an adult now. I take care of myself here. Well, anyway, we all take care of ourselves most of the time. We get assistance from others around us, our loved ones and stuff. But yeah, I am the caregiver now. So it doesn't matter what happened in the past anymore. It doesn't matter. So basically I had to go back, figure out where the glitch was, find the glitch. But I had to have these hard experiences to find the glitch, work through the glitch, get rid of my fear of not having a caregiver, because I don't need a caregiver anymore. That's not happening now. And then I was able to kind of spiral out of it a little bit. It's definitely going to be something I'm sure I work on probably the rest of my life. And that's okay. I'm a work in progress, and that's okay. So
yeah,
let's make the mistakes good again and just get on with it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. It really does bring up a lot, because I think, like you said, I think most of us feel this way. There's that, we're hard pressed, whether we're aware of it or not, we're hard pressed to find value in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And
make the caregiver happy. Please be happy with me. Look what I can do.
Well, and what's interesting is, because I was thinking about, because with my parents, it was that both of them were not present. Like they weren't, it was like you had food and shelter, but that was that was it. There was no,
That's all they were capable of providing.
yes.
They were in such a turmoil themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and not that they're bad for it or anything like that. That stuff is long
Right. No,
gone,
it's not
right?
about bad and
No,
good. It's just about
no,
experiences and, well,
understanding
they
my
all
own
went through all the
dynamics.
stuff that we go through too, and
Right.
it just gets passed down until, somebody can, you know, try to get in there and help and heal some of it. And then when that happens, then everything forward from them heals and gets a little better and better and better. I've seen some families just come clean out of the gutter and right itself, but it takes a generation or two. I've seen that happen. It's happened in mine, you know. Uh, yeah. And so it is a work in progress, I think, on the personal level, on the, family level, on the society level. I think just all of the levels, it's all a work in progress. And it's not all material, I don't think, like we think, but it is here to help us with our energy that we are, and change the quality of our energy from this this fearful, I'm going to get you mentality to a cooperative species again, because I think we lost our way in materialism when that came in, and getting back to that and making sure that the babies are bonded to the families and we have all these connections that we need, and making those the most important things that we do instead of anything physical, because the connections that we have and the people that are here is what is important from my perspective. So,
Right.
and so blaming anything is not helpful.
No.
Yeah.
And well, and I
And,
think
and you
that,
haven't blamed your parents at all. I've never seen you do that. I've seen you struggle in it and to understand where you're at in it, to move
right.
forward. But I've never seen you be,
And
upset about your parents. So please carry on. I'm sorry. I didn't
oh,
mean to.
no, no. Well, I think that that's part of the process as well, though, is understanding, allowing yourself to be angry about it, right? To be, to say, oh my God, I am angry. I am pissed off about this. And
Mhm.
allowing yourself to feel that. And then you grow into that space of going, wait a minute, this is, this is just, this is simply their level of awareness and what they were at and all of that stuff. And here I am growing through it.
It had
And
nothing to do with you.
right, exactly.
Their
So
stuff, it wasn't, yeah.
so this is just part of the process of growing. And I think it's really important. What you're sharing is the reminder that we are the power, and the power, and you know what, at the, I would say that Tom's expression of it would be, the power is love, right? Like, that's actually maximizing it. And it's, so going through it and learning, because are you kidding? I am bad. I have no value. Everything is my fault. I'm basically just a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm garbage. And I really, I finally was brutally honest with myself, going, this is literally what you believe.
Yeah.
And where did this come from? How did you get to that? And
Yeah.
I was like, well, because what out here showed me anything different, which then we go back to the level of awareness, the quality of consciousness, and
Mhm.
all of that stuff that is interplayed, but to help people to bring awareness to others, as we were talking before, is going, okay, as we grow, we help the collective grow. But
Mhm.
sharing these conversations, I think, is imperative, because I know this as well as you, like the climbing out of that brutal pain of those beliefs and those fears is very, very difficult, because it is insanely real. So it's
It
having
hurts really
having
bad
that.
when
Oh my
we
God, it's,
when
oh,
when we're thinking these awful things about ourselves. It's painful. I mean, it hurts worse than if somebody else you really love is saying something ugly to you. It's painful. And it's painful because it's a lot of energy, negative energy that you're aiming at yourself. And it's painful because we have power and it hurts. But the thing about it is you can't do anything with it if you've pushed it out of your mind from the time you were a child. And it's very difficult to work with. But boy, I tell you, once it starts coming up to the surface, it's like, oh my God, this is where I'm doing this to myself. I'm hurting myself. And this is not my intention, It's not my intention to hurt myself. I'm not trying to hurt myself. But
Right.
the way I think about myself and the beliefs I have about myself are so bad, it is hurting myself. And this is painful. And I can't do anything productive when I'm thinking like this.
Yeah. No, and that's why
I can't even help myself. Can't myself get out of myself.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why what you're sharing is so important, because when you are in it like that, it's like you're literally blinded.
Yes.
Right. It's like you're, and again, it opens up to the whole decision space. What our perception is so limited to the access of information, to our access to information. It's so limited. So when we can understand that, like, I love how you're sharing this, because it's like we're taking all of that power and it's a negative. It's like this negative access to ourselves that, or a limiting access.
You're decreasing your power exponentially.
And it's like, and so I think to clarify that we're feeling that way and it's not necessary, right? But yet being highly aware that you do feel that way. And as you like to share, you're like, the only way out is in. So embracing all of that.
It's kind of embarrassing when you figure it out. You're like, I'm doing that. And I've been doing it for a long time,
Oh, like, God.
Oh, I'm doing that, but it's okay, because it was it's a big lesson here. And if you can work through this one, you will, come into your own in a way that you just can't believe it. And you'll get your power back. And then your ability to help others goes up. The ability to help yourself goes up. The ability to help and do what you want to do here, which we all want: healing. We all want to just feel better. We don't want to feel like that all the time, because it hurts, it causes suffering, deep inner suffering, when we're in there and it's like, oh my God, I'm not good enough, oh, I have no value. That's a huge fear that all of us have, because God forbid we get kicked out of our tribe. That's one of the biggest fears we have. It's like, because if you lost your caregivers, or if you got kicked out of the tribe, you were in deep problems there, right? You've got kicked out of your tribe and then trying to survive all by yourself. Well, another tribe's going to find you. Yeah.
Well, okay. So how would you say because walking that path, it is very difficult, because we do have that entrenched belief that it is us. Like, those beliefs are us. Like, I've been working vehemently on recognizing I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my beliefs, or I'm not my thoughts, I'm not my emotions, and I'm not those beliefs that the two of those created. I'm not that. I am consciousness.
Or your intent, really. It's where you're
right. And exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So but I am not my thoughts. No. It's where I'm focusing. Right. So it's like and detaching from the identity of the avatar, even detaching from the experiences and looking at them as information like that. Those are big steps. Like, those are really big steps. So how would you, like, for people who, are, it's like things have been jimmied loose a little bit. And so, there's like some light getting in. How would you help others? Because and hopefully it's not going to be as brutal, but if it is, so that we can show up for people who are walking that path and going, yes, you have to do it, but we are here, you are loved, and you fucking matter.
And we're all in this
And
together.
yes.
No one left behind. We're all in this together. We're all doing this, and it's hard, but the rewards are just endless. And I was able to see all of that firsthand with the work that I did and how it affected my family and how it
Yeah.
affected my relationship with my mother that I hadn't spoke to in like 8 years, and how all that came together at this beautiful Christmas celebration of growth, and how the love just came back into my family unexpectedly. Nobody, I didn't expect it either. We were
Wow. That's
in struggle
so
for so long, and then that happened. It was like, wait a minute, there's something to all this. See, that's how I
mhm.
knew that Tom's theory was correct. I don't know if all of it's exactly right. I don't know. I can't see all of that, but all I know is I just kind of followed you know, the I followed the road, and I decided that let me try this and see what happens. And when I started getting rid of I had so much fear when I started 10 years ago. When I started getting rid of some of my fears, I noticed a huge shift in what I was experiencing. And when I went out the front door of what was happening in my experience, I had a huge shift. And I went, okay, there's something to that because I have direct experience of a change. And this is not what I'm used to experiencing. This is completely different. And so that's why I kept MBT in my toolbox, and
Yeah.
because I just know that there is validity to it and that there is truth in it. Because if there wasn't, nothing would have shifted in my life. I had tried other methods of healing. I had done, other work in other areas, and nothing worked like that information there. And what Tom is trying to say and convey to people, because it is about how we are inside. How are you in there? And that's how the world meets us, is how we are in here. It's what's in is out. It's us. We're doing this. But as we move forward in this thing, we're going to make strides and we're going to get traction on it. And
Yeah.
that's what Tom was talking about the other day. I was on the fireside chat and I asked a question. It's like, it seems a little chaotic in the realm. How are we supposed to be positive through this? And he said, we are in the hard curve of coming out of one paradigm into another, from materialism to the information age, that all is information here, that it's not real, it's just information. The only thing real is what is our self, soul, the inner energy that we are. And he said, yes, it's going to be chaos because we're coming out of one way of thinking and into another, which is, like you said, it's hard to let go of myself as an avatar. It's hard to let go of. That's all you've ever known. But the thing about it is, even science is starting to show that that's not the case. Materialism is not the case. It's not what we are. And that also means these physical beings that we reside in, because it's all energy, and this is an information system to where we can change the quality of our energy. And that's what we're here to do, because without doing it, it just goes right into suffering. So there's your carrot out in front of you, right? Here's your carrot.
Right.
Get out there and get busy.
Yeah. Well, and I think bringing awareness, bringing understanding to the, how it actually works. Well, it makes sense, but it also, um, it's very liberating, even though it's brutal. So
Yeah.
I guess I think of the people who are just getting in touch with the information or just exposed, and
Yeah.
what a huge concept it is to go, I am an avatar, like, or like, this is an avatar, this is not who I am. It's a huge thing. So to start with, like, them recognizing that literally all of that pain that you're feeling are beliefs. It isn't who you are. It's from the experiences that you've
Yeah.
had, right? And so to kind of get in there, And how would you say that people break that apart? Like, how do they, I mean,
Well,
I,
as you know, I've just spent a lot of time learning, Tom's theory, and one of the ways he describes it, which I tend to agree with, is that as we're here to work and change ourselves from the inside out, that as even if you don't come in contact with information about getting rid of your fear, is because fear is the problem, love is the answer. And this is not a physical world. This is in Thomas, this is a virtual world.
Mhm.
Everything derives from the energy that is us. Consciousness. Consciousness is the foundation, which consciousness energy I feel is interchangeable. And I think that what happens when you come into this realm and into this space, you come here as you are, then you get the experiences that you're going to get based on that. And through that is what's going to give you that information. And that information comes in when we're ready for it. Because
Mm,
I think that there is something outside, that knows where we're at and where we're trying to go, because we're all this one big, energy. And some people call it God, some people call it the larger consciousness system, but there is an interface that we work with here. And it could be the collective. I don't know. I
mhm.
can't see it. So I don't know. And I don't think that part really matters. But I do know that, I think that it's that old saying that we've heard before, is when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so when something is going to, just start someone off on this path, which is why I think some people have these really out there experiences, because see,
yeah,
that's going to, kind of shock them into, wait a minute, maybe I don't know exactly how this place is working. I mean, and when they have those first experiences, you've got that first aha moment. Things aren't as what I thought they were. And I think for some of us, we get those when we're really young. I know I did. Uh, I got those experiences when I was really young and I noticed it. But in my culture, you can't talk about that stuff. No, we're not doing that. And, and how can they believe you anyway? I knew one day that my father had went and bought me a little mini bike, and I knew what it looked like. I saw it in my mind
wow,
when I was on my way home from
cool.
school. I saw it in my mind and I knew it was mine. And and walked into the house and opened the door, and I was flabbergasted because I didn't know if that was my imagination or what. But and
Yeah,
I opened the door and there it was. And I just went, I already knew that was there. And so I went down to the creek, which is where I did a lot of my thinking. I went down there and I was sitting there going, how did I know? How did I know that was going to be there? That was so weird. And it really did take me aback. That's probably why I remember it so well.
mhm,
And I didn't say anything about it, what I had seen and how all that went down. But I knew within me that, wait a minute, there's something going on. And see, that was probably one of my experiences that I had that opened me up to, there's more going on than meets the eye, the physical eye.
yeah,
Yeah, because the our all of our spirituality, everything was religious, and only one person was doing anything that was miraculous or anything like that. ESP and all of that stuff had kind of been relegated to the back burner or demonized, one of the two. But there is, I mean, there is paranormal things going on here, and people have these
mhm,
experiences. They do. And I think that, Tom was talking about it the other day about, well, the experiences could be that thing that opens them up to a bigger picture. And when you open yourself up to a bigger picture, what happens then, you can start getting more data around that will help you to see more into it and keep going until you come face to face with yourself, these beautiful selves that we are, IUFCs,
mhm,
consciousnesses. And you come face to face with it and all that it is. And it has all these things in it. And you can spend a lifetime learning, but it is that really know thyself, because
right,
when you know yourself, then you understand, then that brings clarity. And then as you go through your day, you understand and you know that what is coming in is for you. It's not to beat you up or against you. It's for you to help you see that there might be a bigger picture here that we can't see. And then when you start, getting a little past those beginning stages of seeing that there's more going on here, then you can, get past some of the fear of it. And we've been hearing, and this is why I think it's just time. People have been hearing forever. The physicists, they've been telling people, well, when we zero in on stuff, material matter, when we zero in on it, there's really not anything there. It's 99.9% nothing. So okay, y'all, we know there's a material world here, but we can't find it. I think they're still looking for it too.
So freaking good. That's awesome. Oh man.
Yeah. So we've been getting this
magical.
Well, and there was that double slit experiment that was done 100 years ago. And then the scientists were saying, okay, this is really weird. When we watch the experiment go, the results change. What's that? How can the results change just because I'm standing here looking at it? Well, you're changing the results. You're doing it, and it's giving you a different result. And so,
it's such a
it's a mind bender. It really is. But you know what? I think that as human beings in this realm and everything that, just the last 5-6 years that we've been through, I think that it's a good time to bring the subject up. And yes, it's going to be scary at first for some, but they'll get over it quick, because when the truth finally does float to the surface, and it always does, right? When the truth finally floats to the surface, then that understanding is going to come back, that we're supposed to be in our Whovilles holding hands, singing happy things, instead of being, the Mr. Grinch up there on the mountain, all messed up. He's got a messed up reindeer. It's just all messed up, And the little town didn't get mad at the Grinch for stealing their whole Christmas. They didn't get mad at him. They just knew that he was where he was, and that there was nothing they could do, and that hopefully by them being positive and good, that it would change him, and it did. See,
and it was authentic too. It was, they weren't portraying, it was authenticity that is the driving force of the unity, right? Like we know that you can pretend, but I don't want to go off on that one. Man, it's such a huge, but getting back to what you had said, people will naturally wake up. And I appreciate that reminder, because, I'm learning to be aware of because it can be incredibly subtle, the fact that we want to control things, right? And it's not out of like control mongering. It's just that that's what we've always known. So then, but to identify with your own, I love how you put it, because it pretty much just says it plainly. Like, we've turned all of the beauty that we are in against ourselves. So
yeah,
which
unfortunately.
Yeah, but I mean, we are where we are, right? And now we have the opportunity, because there's enough awareness around it. We have the opportunity to
and we're talking about stuff. It.
Yeah. Like, what a beautiful thing.
Talking about it, going, I have this.
Oh man. Like, and having to go, oh my God, I've got to go in and face this crap again. But the thing is that I'm like, well, it's and I don't know if I'm using the right term, but it seems almost paradoxical, because I'm like, I have to go in, or I have to face I have to face my fears and the negativity, but I'm so fucking angry about it, so it's that whole battle. And I mean, and I'm growing through it. And
Mhm.
I can see the difference now. I mean, there's still plenty of fear and things, but I am seeing such a difference in going, oh, like now you're upset with them because of how you feel,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
I'm like, now you get to change that. And I'm like,
Mhm.
damn, this is hard. Because it's well, and it goes back to like
Yeah,
what you had helped me with a while ago, breaking the negative patterns. When
yes.
we break a negative pattern, new worlds emerge, right?
Yes. Yep.
And those patterns, it's like they can feel pretty embedded.
See, here's what happens when we're not aware of our power and what we're doing with it. And it's such a mind trick, and it's not something that you just know and understand. It took me a little while to work through this one. Is what we do is we project what we don't like about ourselves out onto all the people around us, and they don't have
Mm-hmm.
anything to do with this. But
Yeah.
that's what we do. We project it out there because we can't face it in here. So it gets projected outside of ourselves because we haven't incorporated that into ourselves. We have it as a
Mm-hmm.
piece of consciousness that's aimed at ourselves in a negative way. And then we've walled it off over to the side and put bricks there. That's
Right.
not happening, you know. And then as I was moving through the world, and this is what I thought, I was projecting what I had going on onto the people around me. And but see,
Unwittingly,
I'd grown
right?
enough to know that they weren't doing it. I knew they weren't
Mm-hmm.
doing it, so I didn't get mad at them or upset at them. I knew that I had a fear under there I had to get in there and deal with. And so that's what I
Mm-hmm.
did. And every, single time I would project my my stuff onto someone else. It was the hardest thing to face because when that would happen and I would feel upset, the first thing that I would want to do is like, well, why I oughta.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to, learn to stop myself, say, wait a minute, nobody's doing anything to me. I am doing me to me. This is about me. And I need to step away from the person, pack it up, Jack, stop, drop, and roll, whatever way I had to learn how to do it, and go and sit with myself and ask myself, why do I feel this way?
Right.
And that's the big step, because once you can get to that and then you can see that you're projecting your stuff out there and you can bring that to a close, then what happens? You stop projecting that out there and you become whole because you've taken all those parts of yourself back unto yourself. Now you're just you and an energy here. And then when you're around them, instead of projecting your negativity upon them and seeing them as wrong and bad, then you can see them for what it is, struggling just like you did. They're in their own hell and it has nothing to do with you, because that's the truth of the matter right there.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's a hard thing to do. And we've all done it. We all do this. I think
Right.
it's a mechanism within the mind that, if it can't accept something or something is just so painful, it just can't right then. But it's okay if you project and stuff, you're really just giving them your energy because it's not negative towards them because they get that energy and you're just giving it away to them, which you probably need to because you're seeing them in a negative light. Because it's all energy, right? So when we're focused on ourselves in a negative way or on someone else in a negative way, that's your power going there. And so when you're
So
focused on someone in a negative way, your power, your energy is going to them. But what's happening within them, that energy power, they're not upset. You are. So
right.
all they have is the energy that you're giving them because you're focused on them in a negative way. That's all they get. And so it's not like you're hurting them because you're giving them your energy and
Mm-hmm.
and it's usually goes that way. It's like, oh, well, you're bad because you did this to me and now I don't like you anymore. But then it all comes right back around to where, wait a minute, I just did this to myself and you didn't do nothing. and you really need to like step back and say, excuse me, thank you so much. I wouldn't have been able to get to where I'm at without that. Appreciate
Yes.
it. It's just so backwards, and we think it's the other way around, and it's not. It's not. But it is about doing the work and getting in there and seeing what's in it. Know thyself.
Oh God, yeah. So getting back to the power, like when you were the energy. Okay, so because I think that's also kind of important to understand too, is so when you're saying you're giving someone your energy, but if you're coming from a fearful place, because the energy isn't good or bad,
not within them, within you. It's
so, but if you're giving, so can you go into that a little bit more?
Sure. I'm an individuated energy. You're an individuated energy. We all are individuated energy. Well, when we look out into our world and see someone and feel negative towards someone else, that feeling and that problem is within me. That's not their problem.
Right.
And that other person, for instance, if they have a perception of their self as capable, good, people like me, I do my best here, and people realize that they've got a good self-perception. It doesn't matter what you think or feel about that person. You're not going to change that because you have no power there. You can't change someone else's perception.
So, but when you because we can affect each other negatively though, right?
Only if they believe the same way you do.
So it's kind of like when Tom says fear is like a lever on your back. So if you're fearful, they'll find that lever.
Right.
So if you're not fearful, so I just
no handle.
Yeah. No
handle there.
So with some I need a little more clarity around it for some reason. Because I understand what you're saying, but there's something is missing. I'm missing a piece.
It's what you believe.
So it's because I'm being negative doesn't mean they're negative, right? So, but I guess what I'm saying is,
well, they could be being negative. It all depends. But a lot of times, if you look at it, they weren't really being negative. They were just being themselves. They weren't being negative towards you. You just took that information in the way you did because of your own personal fears.
So, okay. So if my energy, okay, I'm probably going to say this. I'm going to use the metaphors.
We need an example around this. It's non-physical and can't see it.
So, well, but I mean, so for if I'm negative, let's say, I'm going to just use this as an example because I don't know what else to use.
Okay.
But you already explained it. So, but if I'm want to do something negative, right? Like I'm mad at somebody, so I conjure up this evil maniacal plan to hurt them, right? So,
and you just created all that energy.
So it won't impact them because they don't have the fear, right? When they don't have the fear, it's not going to. Okay. Correct. So I think
but there is someone it does impact. The person that is doing that. Right. It will impact you, and we do get consequences when we are unkind here. There is a morality, integrity coding here, whatever you want to call it. But
really,
we are unkind to others. Yes.
I just look at the reality and it's like, whoa,
it's huge.
Sure wouldn't seem like it. Right. It just, I mean, the level that it has gotten to, it almost seems like there isn't consequences. I understand that.
Well, you gotta back it up into bigger pictures. You may not even be able to see those consequences right then. But if you back it up, there's consequences coming up all the time because the quality of your consciousness is resonating out there and bringing that stuff to you anyway. So if you're putting that out there and that energy and you're doing that, it's going to come back to you in
Yeah,
so
yeah,
many
yeah.
ways, because that's what you are.
Or well, also it's the collective, right? So it's the collective that is, so it's the average, right, of the whole of consciousness that is showing in, let's say that our culture here.
Yeah.
So, okay, because I guess my thing was is that I was coming from a place of, I always I going to use these metaphors. I gave my power away. I would always give my power away, right? And um so somebody who has like manipulative tendencies and want to do stuff like that. But I am coming back to it because I don't know why I'm kind of going in circles
Well,
because
let me say this one thing. I think I feel where you're at, in that this is a tough one. Our power, our power is, and it's always flowing through us. It's always there. As long as we're in here, it's always there. We either take accountability for it or not. And we put that onto some other individual. You make all the choices, you make all the decisions, you do all of it. That way, I don't have to be responsible for any of it when it goes south. And I can,
or I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I'm
well,
too afraid, right?
I can prevent myself and not have to go in and deal with me.
Yeah, from the
'Cause
fear.
I can
It's like
project it
I
out
don't know
onto
what
you. I can project it out onto you, and that way I don't have to look at me, because you're the bad
yeah,
one, I'm
well,
the good one.
see, I kind of feel like it's more
Not
of
not for everybody. That
right.
I'm
Because
not
it's
saying for
like,
everybody, but that's kind of how we do.
no, that is, yes,
You're
definitely.
bad and I'm
And
good. I'm a victim. I'm a victim of all of this. I'm not going to take any accountability for any of it.
but
I'm
it
just
was like, because I guess I'm kind of reflecting. I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. I guess I'm reflecting though, because I had so much fear. I didn't even like, obviously, once you start doing these deep dives, you just dig up so much stuff. It's like, holy crap.
whoa, whoa, what is this? I know.
Yeah. But it's so I was, you had said this to me a couple weeks ago, and you're like, and it's true. I am afraid of my own power. I'm afraid of my own power. And I kept saying this to myself in other ways. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to provide for myself. How am I going to provide for myself? I don't know, and I was like, and it all came, the things that I was pondering all came back to that. And I'm like, you're afraid of your own power. So that's why I was handing over. Like I'm really good at overall taking orders. I'm kind of good at that. Like, tell me what to do and I will do it, but you got to be really specific because I'm pretty freaking literal. So, but so that's where I was coming from. It's like, oh man, so afraid of, probably because I mean, this sounds whatever. It's like I didn't know anything. Like I didn't know anything about how to take care of myself. Like I did things, like I started working at 14, 15, and I did things like that, but there was literally no understanding around it, right? It's like that autopilot thing. And for whatever reason, I ended up doing that. And so it's like all of this fear, but probably because, there's a belief that was, oh
That
God,
we
it could
don't
go
have
on
any
forever.
power. People our age, we came up in a system that said to us, to our face, you don't have any power here. When we have this
Yeah.
immense
Yeah. Yeah.
power,
Yeah.
in reality,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't true. And
Mm-hmm.
then as you live your life and you start coming to the immense power that you carry within yourself, it takes you aback. And then you start realizing, oh, I've done stuff. I need to deal with me. I need to do something here because I'm doing way more than I thought I was here. I thought I was just living this little bitty, little backward life in Texas. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, the impact
What
we
was
have
going on.
is
I saw what my power was doing. I went, oh, oh, and then you start seeing it, and it's like, oh, okay, I need to deal with me, and this is more going on here than meets the eye, and I could see it.
well, and I think that's why it's important with what you're sharing, because when we understand that we have that power, and it's not wielding power, it's that power of creation, the power
Yes,
of creating, right? That force that, and so when we understand that, and that we're all
and it
when
can be
we
just power, not power over others. This is
right,
just
right,
inner power. It's like a power
yes,
source, like
exactly.
you're a giant, you know, we've seen what power can do, right? It can destroy worlds. It can destroy all kinds of
Hmm.
things, and it can be very destructive. But power can also be very constructive and creative
Hmm.
too. And when we are faith, turning that energy in on ourselves, and
Hmm.
not seeing ourselves in a good positive way, and having a negative perception of ourselves and have self-hate, then what that amount of that power is doing that to you, and then you're recreating that instead of getting rid of your fear and creating
Right.
kindness and cooperation, and creating things out of love instead of fear.
And that's why I think it's so important to understand that concept, or at least to have it introduced more, because when you can crack that open a little bit and have awareness around it, then you're seeping into your own power a little bit more and more and more, instead of having it, like you said, having it, instead of it being destructive, it's constructive, because there's more awareness around it, and going how I can grow through this and utilize it in that positive way, but understanding that as a fundamental of you,
Yes.
right?
Hmm.
And that's a big deal.
It's a lot of responsibility, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I feel like when you have an understanding around it, there is a huge responsibility, but as it goes on, it's just the natural part of it is you. So it's like, oh my gosh, I get to do good things. I get to
I get
share love.
involved. Yeah.
Right? And I get to I get to, just by walking in a room, I get to share love, right?
Yes.
They just
That's a big
feel that.
one.
Right? I mean, just remarkable things like that,
Yeah.
where, and because it is difficult when you're deeply struggling and you're going, I don't understand what the hell is going on. I just remember for years and years, it was insanely brutal, and I was always always seeking, for more and more and more understanding. Um, but when you're in that, but and again, it goes back to you saying, when you're ready, it does show up.
Hmm. Yes.
So
And just relaxing. I mean, we have help here. I've had a ton of help. I have,
yeah, that's
but
a big
it
deal
also
for
brought
sure.
responsibility. What are you going to do with it? You gonna
Yes, exactly.
do something with it? Are you going to take this information and just, it's like, oh, I know this and I know that, or are you going to apply it to your life and actually do the work?
Right.
And
Yeah.
I was just ready. I was like, okay, there's got to be something more to this. This is just, I am making messes and I want to know why. And I want to understand what's going on here. And I just got really lucky, and I was able to learn a lot. I went to like 6 immersives with Tom Campbell, and you get anywhere near any of that, all of your stuff's coming up. There's nothing you can do. It's coming.
Oh, amazing, man. That's amazing.
Well, it was just like amplifying yourself, your vibe,
Yeah.
walking into, this place there in Tennessee, you walk in there, everything that you is standing right there in front of you.
Man, fascinating.
I don't know what that is, and and then I had some experiences there that were not normal, and they were paranormal. I did, but I'm probably not going to speak on those very much. I might go around one or two of them, but in those experiences, when I was able to explain to myself and understand, that I was just more right brained. I was tapping into the larger system. And, one of the jokes when I was there, these out of body experiences, you're just shifting data streams. And yes, we can do that. We have that capability, but we have to learn how to do it, And when I was younger, I just could do it because I'm more of a right brain thinker. I mean, I'm very intuitive, and that is kind of the key to being able to shift these data streams. So, but see, I got into the place where I was, shifting out of my data stream so much that I would be, in my physical reality, plus I'd be off somewhere in my mind doing something. And it was really funny because one of the jokes that we started talking about was like, everybody here come to Tom Campbell's Immersive so they can learn how to go out of body and connect to the larger system. And here's Cheryl. She's trying to figure out how to get back into and stay in her body instead of leaving so much. I was the only one there trying to figure out how to get back in my body. It was just so funny.
Oh my gosh.
It was such a mess.
Well, this popped in that I think it would be very profitable to have a conversation around like how you learn about your avatar and what is specific to my avatar and its personality and my character, and what is specific to my consciousness, right? Like, so I think there's a place where we confuse the two. We think because we identify as the avatar, right? So I think,
yeah, it's like a video game, thinking that you're that little guy running around in that, imaginary
exactly
world. Yeah, and that's not
so.
you.
Learning your personality and the quirks of your avatar and the character that you chose helps you navigate better through it, and it also separates you identifying as the character so that you are able to process, to orchestrate that beauty of your consciousness in the reality.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So that would be a cool thing.
There are different thinkers. We are all different, and we have, some of it is the same and some of it is just about consciousness. Within it has intuition, it has intellect, it has logic. We have the tools that we use to work in this realm, right?
Yeah.
And we all have specific tools that we prefer, right? Some people prefer the logic, intellect tool. Others prefer the intuition tool. And it just all depends. And, more women than men are more intuitive because we have more feeling, because we were the caregivers of the infants and we brought the new ones in. So, it just all depends on what character you're in, to which preferential tool you're using, and the intuition piece. If you spent a lot of time there, like I did for a very long time, it sharpens that tool. So I'm able to use that tool to go out of body, to do these other things, because that is kind of like the door to it. So that is one way you can sharpen your ability to go out of body, to do these other, telepathy, to intuitively pick up things, is to, learn how to focus, and learn how to focus the mind better. Meditation helps. If you can't meditate, which a lot of people don't like it, you can stare at a candle. That's why I say just stare at a candle. You need to focus and work on that. When the better you can focus and let that left logic, intellect, set that tool down and then you just have to just kind of fall back into it, into the intuitive space.
Mm-hmm.
Intuitive space.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
That's why I think it's so important to, like you were saying, know thyself. Like, how actually do I function? Like, what
am I
are my
doing, and
propensities?
how can I grow to make my time here more effective, right?
Yeah, and then so it's like learning. Yes, it's learning about how you interact. On top of the fears, but it's like I did not know a lot of things about myself. Like that whole I'm not logical. I'm literal, but logic eludes me a lot of times because I don't have an answer for it. It's fascinates me because I'm really there's a big message here for me within that, and I haven't tapped into what that is yet, but I'm
You have a
incredibly
very strong
literal.
intellect. You have a very strong intellect. You're very
Well, I
good.
confuse the intellect with being smart.
No, the
I'm
intellect.
not that smart.
You can have a powerful intellect and not and do things that aren't smart, because see, that's all based on non-physical stuff, right? And when I depend so much on my intuition, I have a heck of a time with taxes, spreadsheets, anything, any organization stuff. I really struggle in, which I've been able to get a lot of lessons the last few years to learn how to organize myself. And
Nice.
I traveled and traveled and traveled, and I was able to really work on my left brain processes of organizing stuff. Because I tell you what, you get out into the world and you're traveling, you better have those details right.
Yeah.
I got them wrong
Wow.
sometimes, and I would have to use my intuition to get myself out of it. It was so funny, I would get into a quagmire. It's like, oh, I didn't plan that real well, but it's okay. So
Well, but that's the thing too, is like learning how you function and how
yeah,
you operate. Then that way, instead of beating yourself up going, oh, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, you learn how you function, and then you can work with what you have and then enhance
yes.
the things that need, lean into a little bit more of what are your what are
Your
your
strengths?
assets?
Yes, we all
And
have our
then,
weaknesses and strengths. See,
yeah.
it goes back to that self-depreciation thing. See how
Well,
it goes.
but
I'm
it's,
not good
but
at this.
it's
I'm not good at that. It's like, no, I'm good at
right.
this, and this over here is not my strength, and that's okay, because I can sharpen that tool. I can sharpen that tool
Exactly.
and at least get it to work good enough so that I can manage my realm and my reality.
Well,
Right?
yes, and I think that understanding what your strengths are and what needs to be, honed in on a little bit and worked with helps you not be so self-depreciating, right? So
Yes,
self-deprecating. So when we can tap into that stuff and learn how we function,
to
what
function better.
yeah,
It's
what
easy,
is,
isn't it? It's this getting in
but
there
it's
and finding out what your energies do it, and you'll get these experiences where you can see that you've got some self-depreciation going on, and self-depreciation can go from just a little bit of energy that you've got partitioned off that's going into that rabbit hole of
mhm.
self-depreciation, or it can just be a whole lot, and you can see that in others around you, people that talk negatives and say negative things about themselves, or they'll do things that they don't have to do because people love them and accept them already.
Well,
They don't
yeah,
have to
well, and if
they don't have to try so hard.
Well, if you can show someone like, oh, this is what you're doing, or this is how you're handling this, or this is how you're doing this thing, and they're really frustrated with themselves, but you show that, oh, well, this is actually an asset. And if I think it's just shining the light on that you're not wrong for having um that way of handling it, or
Don't beat yourself up because you're beating yourself up.
well,
Don't do it.
exactly. But also,
I beat
if you
myself
have
up.
a better,
Terrible fault. I'm terrible
but
because I
it's,
do it. See, you're beating
well, but
yourself up because you beat yourself up. Yeah. Don't
But if
don't
you
do
have understanding around it, like someone who doesn't have understanding around it doesn't even realize it, and then they're like, oh my gosh, this is actually an asset, and all I need to do is, so it's, I think just bringing understanding around it will help clear up some of that stuff, right?
exactly. And that's why we're doing this, Pamela. And I think this is a good place to stop here, because I think that, you know, the concepts and what we wanted to talk about and deal with, I think we did it. And so we'll come back and do another episode on the other concepts, because what's going to happen probably from here is a new concept to come on, and we could go on for another 2 hours. So
Yeah.
yeah, because you're wonderful to talk to, and I'm just
Oh,
so
I
glad
love
that we found
this.
each other, and we just click so well, and I love it. And so thank you for coming and
Thank
onto the
you.
front
I
row seat
appreciate it.
and sitting here with me and dealing with ourselves. It's just been a wonderful hour, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who decides to listen. Appreciate the energy exchange.
Yes, and my hope is that it can help in understanding ourselves in a new and better way.
Big time. That is the massive intent.
It's a massive intent. It's a good one, and I love it. Take care, Pamela.
Bye
Much love.
bye. Mwah.